Hello again. So, let's talk more about self-esteem. And in particular, the biggest enemies to high self-esteem and those kinds of things. This is a very important topic, isn't it? Well, one of the biggest enemies we have for high self-esteem is that we don't challenge our inertia. So, we have a tendency to remain at rest. That is to say, most of us anyway, particularly as we age, may in fact develop an inertia towards the rest state, and we're not challenging it. You may know that not moving enough physically and mentally are huge problems. They can cause all sorts of issues with health, both physical and mental. We also have a tendency to run from discomfort, yes? I mean, who runs towards discomfort? It runs towards discomfort. That sounds odd, doesn't it? But actually, in many cases, running towards issues is better. Approaching issues that are difficult is better than not running at all or running away from them. This can be a big cycle issue. This can be a vicious cycle, as it were, where our inaction damages our self-esteem, and we then become more inactive, you see. Okay, so we may actually begin to generate internal criticisms. I'm not talented enough. I'm not smart enough. You can develop a negative set of internal commentary. This is what we call irrational self-talk. It's not rational because it is artificially causing us negative evaluation. And that in turn damages our real self-image. So within ourselves, we may develop destructive voices, really commentary that we have that's destructive. These can be conscious ideas or unconscious ideas, really even, of failure, of fear, of self-doubt, of self-sabotage. This is a real problem in many people. Well, we have to confront these voices. We don't want to ignore them. We don't want to run away from them. What we want to do is challenge those internal voices to give us evidence. And if there's no evidence, those are false voices, right? So if I said to myself, I'm really stupid, what would be the evidence of that? Well, there really isn't much. Someone with low self-esteem might say, well, I make mistakes all the time. Well, there's no one with high or low self-esteem that doesn't make mistakes. So that's not evidence. We have to actually distinguish between fact and fiction. Distinguish between feelings that are based on reality versus those based on non-reality. Feelings are often not truth, as you may well know. Well, negative, irrational self-talk begins to condition you. If you say negative things that are not true about yourself, and most negative things are not true, then you may start to believe you are worth less. So if you said, I'm so stupid when you make a mistake, the background begins to take on a life of its own. In the other direction, the irrational positive self-talk, like, I'm the smartest person in the world, I'm the smartest person around, nobody knows more than I do, it has no lasting effects. It doesn't last long, which means you need to keep saying it to have the positive effect, because it just doesn't last long. So what we want is positive, rational, not irrational talk, you see. So I can calm myself down enough to take a test. It points you in the right direction, So what are some characteristics of high self-esteem people versus low self-esteem people? Well, one is high self-esteem people are not defensive in the face of external criticism directed at them. Low self-esteem folks, they get defensive or get very offensive. in the face of this external criticism that people may level at them. High self-esteem people enjoy others, but they also enjoy being alone. Low self-esteem people really have to be with other people, or they have to be alone in order to function at all, really, to function at all. High self-esteem people are very emotionally connecting, and low self-esteem people are emotionally disconnecting, maybe even abusive. High self-esteem people behave in ways that support their values. Low self-esteem people sacrifice their values. High self-esteem people are energetic and creative. Low self-esteem people are lethargic and self-indulgent. High self-esteem people, they don't really need other people to like them. But they will not be absent of people who like them. It's not going to happen, really, because high self-esteem people are generally well-liked. Not universally, not by everyone, but people are drawn to them. They often have a charisma. Low self-esteem people require other people to like them, and so they will go to great lengths to have people like them. And often they will do things for other people, and they will not realize that you don't have to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. High self-esteem people are assertive, whereas low self-esteem people are passive or often aggressive or even passive-aggressive. High self-esteem people associate with positive and challenging people, whereas low self-esteem people, they will associate with negative and often unmotivated people, or they will try to associate with people who will treat them badly just to have the effect of being in a relationship. Painful to even say, isn't it? Okay, let's talk about self-awareness and living consciously. This gets a little metaphysical or philosophical. So how do we live consciously? Well, what we're talking about is being in the moment, being present. Secondly, concerning yourself with understanding the world as it is, the world around you as it is, not wishing it were different, not seeing it as a dangerous place. In fact, the world around us is less dangerous than it once was, and it continues to get less dangerous. Now, clearly there are areas that are dangerous to live in and be around, but overall, not true. There's a book called Angels of Our Better Nature. It's not a religious book. It's a book on the way in which the world is actually getting less dangerous and very factually put together. It's written by Steven Pinker. We want to have a commitment to learning if we want to live consciously. Learning is the greatest weapon we have in developing rational living and developing a conscious orientation to the world. Seeking clarity where there is not clarity. Some people do live in a fog, yes. Well, it's better to seek learning and seeking clarity. To be aware of the values that motivate you. To be in touch with the values that you have. We'll get to that soon enough. And to distinguish between facts and feelings. Emotions are ephemeral. They are short-lived. Usually, they are not standards and beacons of reality. No. Let's talk about a couple of lifespan stages. The first one is later adolescence, really about 18 to 22 or 24, depending on the authors that you read, depending on who is discussing this life stage. But 18 to 24, let's just say 24, though most of you would never consider you to be a later adolescent. But this is a transition stage towards young adulthood. This is a stage in which you are achieving a sense of your own values and committing to them. to really getting a strong and substantial sense of your value structure, of finding out who you really are. And the way we do this is usually through role experimentation, taking on different roles and doing different things with different people, involving yourself with other peers in a more substantial way. And then in these ways, discovering how your behavior either supports or does not support and may even undercut your value structure. So this is a really important stage of life. This is why it may or may not be a good time of life to commit to one other person for the rest of your life. Many people are still changing in very substantial ways in the 18 to 24 range. If you have found someone to spend the rest of your life with, more power to you. You are lucky, but you may not be wise. And then the 24 to 34, this is the young or sometimes called emerging adulthood stage. This is where you're beginning to understand emotional intimacy, love, and connecting. This is where empathy and respect are seen to be and found to be crucial in developing deeper relationships, in learning also who to trust and who not to trust. This is where giving and receiving emotional attention, emotional pleasure is dominating, where setting and keeping good boundaries are big lessons, where learning how to originate and to maintain relationships at all levels, of all kinds, is very important. Very important. Now, we have an exercise to be done, and I want to explain those to you in the next video. Okay? See you then.